this is Anna from Savvy Cat Realty, and today I'm here to talk to you about the Golden Triangle in the Algarve. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Anna. I'm the owner of Savvy Cat Realty. Savvy Cat Realty is a relocation and investment agency that operates in the whole of continental Portugal. We work from a lifestyle perspective, helping people find the right location and the right property for their own personal needs. We work always very tailored to each client's goals and needs, and our goal is also to try and avoid negative gentrification in a way that the people who come from the outside end up making good purchases that are not inflating the local market. We are a team of fully local people and are here to make sure you settle in Portugal in the right attempt at the best way possible. So if this makes sense to you, do check out our website in www.savvycatrealty.com, where you can find all of the information about our services listed very transparently. So into today's topic, the Golden Triangle of the Algarve. So the Golden Triangle is probably the most expensive property region in Portugal. And why is this? So the Algarve, as you probably already know, is an extremely popular touristic destination with some of the most paradisiac beaches. And of course, it became very, very popular with foreigners, and the prices inflated very quickly. Back when I bought my first property in the Algarve, which was in about 2017 maybe, there was completely two different markets. There was the local market and there was the foreign market. At this point, the prices have more or less evened out, and there are no local market in the sense there is no significantly lower priced property, but you still have a very clear luxury market present in the Algarve. That is, of course, due to the amazing climate and the amazing landscape and seascape that you can find here. So what is the Golden Triangle and where is the Golden Triangle? So the Golden Triangle is generally defined by 3 points that create a triangle. So on the left side you have Vilamoura, on the right side you have Quinta do Lago, and on the top you have Almancil. And technically, Almancil is not really a luxury area. It's more of in the interior, and the true luxury property tends to be along the coastline. So it would be Vilamoura, Vale do Lobo, and Quinta do Lago. However, Almancil is where you have the shopping districts and the shopping area and the high-end shopping in general. So it kind of creates also this triangle where it is said to be the Golden Triangle with the most expensive prices in the Algarve. The Golden Triangle is probably not only referring to the high prices, but also to the fact that the Algarve, the Mediterranean coast of Portugal, is often referred as the Golden Coast. And back when I was living in the Algarve, the Silver Coast would often be referred as the Alentejo Coast. However, when we are looking at a more national perspective, people tend to refer to the Silver Coast as the Ericeira to, let's say, Foz do Orelho area, that is the big surfing destinations. So it's kind of curious that these things are a bit all over the place, are mostly definitions created by foreigners that are not really used by locals. So that was just kind of a side piece about the origin of this Golden Triangle designation. So going back into the actual, what is this actual Golden Triangle? So, the Algarve, like I already said, it's extremely popular touristic destination and has the most amazing beaches. But what the Golden Triangle adds on top of that is golf courses. There is probably about 5 golf courses in the triangle. And one of them, the Quinta do Lago, which is probably the most expensive area and also the one that is renowned the longest, so to say. It kind of became a luxury area, I would say like 5 to 10 years ago. And in this area, you have a golf course that won the best golf course in Europe awards. So it also became very popular in that end. And Quinta do Lago is a bit like a huge resort. It's like a resort settlement. You have this golf course that goes around the whole settlement, and then you have a number of actual resorts and private properties that are basically mansions. It's mansions. You go, I drove by because it's the best way to show you what it is. It would be either drone or driving because in these areas you basically have closed gated properties after closed gated properties, one after the other, and even the restaurants and the commercial areas, the commercial properties are closed gated properties too. So it's kind of funny in that way. The vast majority of property in this region is definitely villas. You have very little apartments. You do have some closed gated condominiums, but they tend to be more resorts and hotels than actual private properties. So that's also something to take into consideration. And the Quinta do Lago, it's fairly close to Faro. So, and it's curious because the access, it's about 20 minutes drive from the airport, but the accesses from the Faro side are actually not great. And you have some of those very narrow streets that are supposed to go 2 cars, but it's very dubious that 2 cars actually go. It's very stressful when you are going on those very narrow streets and there's a car coming the other way. And they are not terribly upkept, because that's something that I notice sometimes in these high-end areas, and I know it happens, for example, in Albufeira, is that you have these $million properties, and then the access to it, the roads to it are full of holes, and that's just so stupid. But the Golden Triangle, so Quinta do Lago, Vale, Lobo and Vilamoura themselves don't have that issue. The roads are in pretty good state. However, the accesses towards Quinta do Lago can have a bit of that issue depending on the access you use. So do keep that in mind and don't be too confused if you end up driving to Quinta do Lago and going through one of those very narrow roads. It happens. So, as I was saying, Quinta do Lago is kind of a huge resort with a golf course. And I always say this when it comes to luxury property and luxury areas. I would say one of the biggest distinctions between that makes luxury areas tend to be green spaces. And these areas, all of them, are full of green spaces. You have very manicured gardens, all the streets have greenery, and Quinta do Lago and the Vale do Lobo have the golf course that go through the settlements. And on top of that, Quinta do Lago is also at the start of the Ria Formosa Reserve, which means you also have the biodiversity and the landscape of Ria Formosa. And it's very interesting because if you go to the beach in Quinta do Lago, you have to cross the Ria Formosa through a bridge that they have there and go to the beach on the other side. And it's extremely scenic. You have the reserve, the Ria Formosa Reserve, then you have the golf course, then you have these beautiful mansions, and on the other side you have a paradise beach. So it is really paradise on earth in a way. And Quinta do Lago actually means a state on the lake, and it does also have a lake. And the lake is also kind of part of the Ria Formosa area. And it's also quite beautiful, and you have these beautiful lakeside properties and restaurants and these children's playgrounds. So overall, this is definitely one of the most amazing places to go for a summer vacation. Of course, you have to afford it. So when it comes to hotels, average prices are probably around 300 euros per night, going up. And when it comes to property, we are talking about between 9,000 and 15,000 euros per square meter in Quinta do Lago, which is the most expensive of the three. So it's definitely only for those who can afford. The average price is between 2.5 to 5 million when it comes to the villas and transactions. The most common on the market are on that price range. And like I said, the big majority are villas, very little apartments. And another curious thing is, although the luxury market is a very stable market, so it generally doesn't go down a lot, it also doesn't value drastically in a short period of time, so you can expect the property to maintain the value. But it's curious because the average time to sell in this region is actually a year. So there is demand, there is transactions, but it's not a huge amount of them, and it's a slow market. So do keep that in mind if you are looking at this kind of areas. They are stable, they are great, but they are slow markets. So the next one after Quinta do Lago, through the coastline between Quinta do Lago and Vilamoura, you have Vale do Lobo. Vale do Lobo is a more recent settlement. It was only developed after Quinta do Lago became very popular. It kind of became a 2.0, and it's slightly smaller, and it also has, I would say, a lot more private property than resorts. While in Quinta do Lago you have a lot of resorts. You have the high-end ones, the Conrad, the Four Seasons, the West Wind. You have all of the high-end resorts there. And Vale do Lobo has more private property and only like 2 resorts, maybe, not a lot of them for sure. And the setup is very similar. I would say that there is less huge mansions, but they are still huge mansions, a lot of them, honestly. I would say probably the most common would be 4 bedrooms, I would say, in both cases. They tend to be sizable mansions, all of them with pools and everything you may wish. And generally these areas are actual luxury. So it's not just location luxury where the prices are high. Generally the property in this area is built properly, thinking in luxury with good materials and good construction. So it's actual luxury market. So Vale do Lobo has, like I said, more private villas in a lot of them, and also has the golf course going through the settlement. And I really liked the golf course. I'm not a golf course. I don't know anything about golf. I actually made myself look silly when I went to the Vilamoura golf course because it's a fully gated course, while the Quinta do Lago and the Vale do Lobo one, you can kind of just walk around because it's in the middle of the settlement. And the Vilamoura one is fully closed, so I had to go through the club in order to check out the golf course. And I realized there was a dress code, so the whole polo and short things, it's not a personal preference. I always noticed that everyone golfing kind of seemed like they had a uniform, but it didn't cross my mind that it was an actual uniform. So it is an actual uniform. So yeah, it was a funny situation. Anyway, so in this settlement, because it's mostly villas and golf courses, I would say the preferred method of transportation is golf cart. There you see a lot of golf carts going around. It's pretty funny. And I was derailing because I was talking about the Vale do Lobo golf course, and I really liked it because I noticed a lot of species of bird species and a lot of just liveliness, nature liveliness while I was in Vale do Lobo, and I think it definitely was a purposeful effort, something that was made on purpose in our effort of preservation. And I found it really, really pretty. You just see these flocks of species, bird species going around the golf course and just walking around, and it's really, really pretty. And yeah, other than that, Vale do Lobo, the difference between Quinta do Lago would also be the beach. Vale do Lobo is not on the Ria Formosa area, so you have the typical cliffside beach from the Algarve, and you also have the golf course on top of the cliff, and then the beach on the bottom of the cliff. So it's it's also quite interesting. Once again, all properties tend to be walled properties, even the commercial spaces. Another curious thing that I noticed is that I was kind of expecting the supermarkets and the commercial groceries to be a Polonia. A Polonia is a high-end supermarket in the Algarve. It's kind of, I would say, similar to El Corte Inglés, but we don't have El Corte Inglés in the Algarve. So we have this Apollonia supermarket that is kind of a more high-end, service-oriented supermarket. And I was expecting Apollonia to be present in these locations, but curiously, what was in these locations was Pingo Doce. And the Pingo Doce in Vale do Lobo is a very picturesque one. It was curious too. So both of these locations also have this, Quinta do Lago has kind of a mini mall. Not mini, it's a proper mall, to be honest. And Vale do Lobo has not kind of a commercial building where you have the Pingo Doce and the clinic and kind of some of those things. But like I mentioned, most of the actual commercial property, like the supermarkets, the core stores, the main stores, the most of the commercial area is in Almancil. So Almancil kind of becomes the top end of the triangle for the commercial side of things, although it does also have some villas. If you go around Almancil, you see that it's a very commercial, and then it's also right next to the big mall area where you have IKEA and the outlet, and so it's a very popular shopping destination. So on the other end, the only end that we are missing here on Golden Triangle, it's the only proper big city in this triangle, which is Vilamoura. Vilamoura is a port city, is a fairly modern one, and it's the biggest of the three locations. And Vilamoura has a lot of high-rise buildings, especially lots of them are resorts. You have a lot of hotels and resorts in Vilamoura along the coastline. Basically, you will have this area that is full of resorts, then the marina, and then you have the golf course further inside, and a more mixed town in between where you have a hospital and the normal services that you have around. It's still not a very big town. I would say that it takes you like half an hour to walk to one end to the other. But overall, closer to the coast, you have more high-rise buildings and hotel and apartment buildings. And towards the interior, well, the golf course is, you have more villas and most of them gated properties, but also some hotels and resorts mixed in between. So Vilamoura is a lot more of a mixed property. It still has the characteristics of a luxury area where you have a lot of green space and a lot of trees, and even the walkways have greenery around that, which is not common in the Algarve because the Algarve is very hot. So it's very expensive to maintain this greenery. So definitely the presence of it is a sign of luxury. And of course, the other thing that made Vilamoura developed a lot was the marina. It's probably the most high-end. I'm not sure. There's quite a few marinas throughout the Algarve. Vilamoura is probably one of the most renowned ones and considered the most luxury one, probably. And around the marina, you have a lot of commercial spaces, and it's extremely popular destination, especially for breads. And I did go to film in mid-September on purpose because in the seasonality in the Algarve is very much a thing. And if I went to film in August, it would just be people, and I wouldn't be able to film much because there would just be a sea of people. So in September, you are still able to see liveliness. The restaurants and bars are still busy, but it's not a sea of people, and it's quite pleasant. Overall, I often recommend going to the Algarve in September or June because the weather is still very good and you don't get the sea of people that you get in July and August. So just tip. So yes, overall this gives you an idea of what the Golden Triangle entails. Vilamoura also has two beaches. It has the beach closer to the city that tends to be the one that people that go to the hotel and resorts use, and then it has a beach on the other side that is the Falésia beach, which is curious because Falésia kind of means cliff, and there's no cliff on that beach. It's also one that you have to cross a bridge to go to. And there's paid parking to go to the beach if you are not staying in one of the resorts that kind of have shuttles and so on. The Falésia beach, you pay 40 cents per 15 minutes. So to go there in September, and I think it was 60 cents per 15 minutes in August. So do keep that in mind. But overall, it is a very big stretch of beach, so it's a very comfortable beach, and it also has restaurants and some bars, so it's very nice. And when it comes to pricing, Vilamoura is a lot better in average than, or a lot cheaper in average than Quinta do Lago and Vale do Lobo. I did mention the pricing in Quinta do Lago to be between 9,000 and 15,000 per square meter. I would say Vale do Lobo will be between 6,000 and 8,000, 9,000. And then in Vilamoura, it will be from 4,500 to 6,000. So quite a bit more affordable. And then, like I said, the end of the triangle, Almancil is already interior, and although you do have some villa and construction there, it's a very different kind of vibe. You don't have, it's more of a commercial area than a residential area, so to say. And the prices here are closer to 4,500, 5,500. So this gives you an idea. There is also a lot of construction still happening, and Vilamoura was a lot of development. And Quinta do Lago and Vale do Lobo, there was some, but not as much. So that's also something to keep in mind. And like I mentioned, these high-end markets tend to be slow markets with the average time to sell and the time on market to be 1 year. So I hope this was helpful. I would love to see to hear and read your opinions about the Golden Triangle and whether or not you've been there. And we are here every week with information about Portugal. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you all next week. If you find our videos useful, just subscribe to our channel so we keep seeing each other every week. Bye.